So, a little something completely off the topic of music, Benjamin Orr, or the Cars today. I want to talk a little bit about the lost art of hanging out. Do people just hang anymore? I mean, remember hanging out, sitting around, shooting the shit, gabbing, pondering, talking about everything and nothing? Do people even talk anymore, like in person? I was scrolling through nostalgia accounts on Instagram, looking at photos of young people from the 70s and 80s, sitting around, sitting on cars. It just took me back to my childhood and teenagehood in the 70s and 80s. Remembered sitting on the floor in the hallway of a college dorm, smoking Camel cigarettes and talking for hours about boys, about parties, about life, about politics, about classes and professors and summer plans. Gathering, I feel, is like such a lost art. Gathering for no particular reason, sitting in the woods or at the beach or like the pictures on car hoods in the park and parking lots late at night. I really miss youthful hopefulness and restlessness and just plain hanging out when you'd share your longing to get going with your life, talking about the endless possibilities of what you might do once this is over. If you lived in the northern climes, and especially near the Great Lakes, a good part of the year was gray and cold. The cold wasn't so bad, but the lack of sunshine was really challenging. And once the gray gave way, there was brown season. No leaves, most days cloud cover hanging over the atmosphere, and the wind across the lake was so cutting from November through April. So once the unlocking ended, and it would usually be close to May before that happened, the desire to be outside was just overwhelming. Those first days when you didn't have to wear coats were so liberating, so breathtaking that you just had to find your friends and be outside. And when hanging out was a good portion of my life, the best hanging out was most definitely outside. In middle school, on spring days, when the weather finally turned, when the air smelled like sun and earth and daffodils, my friends and I would often make a last-minute decision to forego taking the bus to walk home from school. A whole gaggle of us would skip or gallop down the sidewalks, our sweaters or jackets tied around our waists. Sometimes we'd sing or chant, I don't know what I've been told. Sound off 1, 2, sound off 3, 4. Or this classic, there she was, just a walking down the street, singing do-a-did-did-did-dum-did-do, snapping her fingers and a shuffling her feet, singing do-a-did-did-dum-did-do. Sorry, I'm a terrible singer, I know it. I lived on the complete opposite side of town from school, so it was quite a hike, but I didn't care. It felt like we were doing something radical or wild. Time spent away from the supervision of adults was always exhilarating when we were 13. Oftentimes, we'd make a pit stop at the Bomber House downtown to get a pizza sub that the Bomber House was locally famous for. We'd sit on a bench in the park and just enjoy that gooey sloppiness of a delicious tomato saucy, cheesy, toasted sub roll concoction that only the Bomber House could make. There was nothing like sitting on a park bench with your comrades, eating a Bomber House pizza sub, hot and wrapped in tinfoil and wax paper on one of the first glorious days of spring. Also, while in middle school, hanging out and listening to record albums was an integral part of socializing. We'd peruse Good Vibrations, the record store / head shop, browse for the latest album drop or whatever record we thought would make us look cool to our friends or people we wanted to be our friends. We'd ride our bikes to each other's houses, show off our latest purchase, hang out, listen, marvel over the cover or the record sleeve, pore over the lyrics, talk about boys and make weekend plans. Sometimes we'd make brownies or macaroni and cheese. Sometimes we'd ride bikes to other friends' houses just to see what they were doing. We'd gather on our bikes in the road, on dead-end streets under the streetlights in the evenings in the summer, or over by the creek, hoping boys we liked would ride by and maybe stop. Other times we'd ride downtown to get a slush puppy. then sit on the newspaper box outside the door of the convenient food mart, slurping blue raspberry ice until we got a brain freeze. Maybe we'd ride up to the park to watch boys play Little League or Babe Ruth. These were the days way before girls' sports leagues. We'd park our bikes and swing on the swing set for a while, get some penny candy from the snack bar, walk around, goof off before it was time to go home for dinner. Another place we would hang out was a place on the college campus called Tin Man Hill. It got its nickname from the metal sculptures that were positioned atop a small rise. The actual name of the art installation was The Conversation, but everyone knew it as Tin Man Hill. We'd gather there to get a good vantage point of the goings-on campus, and it was where we'd hang before informal cross-country practice in late summer before actual practice started. We'd sit cross-legged in the grass, gabbing as team members would arrive, one at a time or in pairs, either on foot or by bike. For the record, I was a terrible runner. I had no stamina or stick-to-itiveness, and I was short. I certainly did not have any of the physical attributes or mental toughness needed to be a distance runner. I was only there for the boys because all my crushes were on the cross-country team. Another spot on campus where we'd hang was the lower level of the campus center. This is when we were a little bit older. We'd buy 6 packs of Genesee cream ale from the convenience store there and drink while we played the Troggs Wild Thing over and over and over on the jukebox. We'd hang out for a good few hours. Surprisingly, no one ever asked why the hell a group of 15-year-olds were there drinking on a Friday night. The other cool place to hang at night was on the far side of Fort Apache, which was the complex that housed the power station for the campus. There was a rise on the back of the complex that sort of abutted the New York State Thruway, and you could watch the traffic go by. It was neat at night to see lights of the cars and the semis speed past. It was sort of a secret hiding place because from the front of the building, no one would know you were there. And hanging out in secret, of course, made it so much more exciting. In the 70s and 80s, going to the Point Gratiot on Lake Erie, was essential for hanging out. Everyone went there in the summer. The beach would be jam-packed, kids blanket to blanket on the sand, smelling of sea and ski, Hawaiian Tropic or Band of Soleil, boom boxes blaring, kids throwing dead fish or seaweed at each other in the water. On windy days, the waves were huge, and we'd jump into them as they crashed onto the beach. Days like those made Lake Erie indistinguishable from the ocean, save for the fresh water. We'd walk out past the deep parts to get to the sandbar where the water became shallow, and we'd recline and float in the water. It was the place to see and be seen. We'd spend all day just hanging out in the water and on our blankets, walking back and forth, looking for boys, hoping to see our crushes. Sometimes we'd go back in the evening and sit up high on the lifeguard stands, just talking and looking out at the horizon or the waves. There is nothing more beautiful than a Lake Erie sunset. People who had summer birthdays would often have their birthday parties at the lake in one of the pavilions, and there were always graduation parties out there as well when we were older, and keg parties in the parking lot. There would always be a keg or two in someone's back seat or trunk. Gathering by the lake was a ritual part of growing up here in the 716. Cigarette smoking is bad for your health. It causes cancer, emphysema, and a whole host of other health issues, and I do not recommend smoking cigarettes. However, decades ago, smoking and hanging out went hand in hand. Smoking was a social act. It bonded you with other people. Sometimes you'd meet new people through bumming a smoke or a light. People stood or sat around smoking and talking. Smoking was central to hanging out when I was in college, and hanging out during college was different in that we were more contemplative about the world at large. I have a clear recollection of the night the U.S. bombed Libya. It was April 1986. My friends and I were disturbed and worried. We headed down to the lakefront from our dorm, cigarettes at the ready, and lay on the grass on the shorter lake's bluff or rise above the boathouse and docks that our college owned on Seneca Lake, smoking and pondering our future, frightened about the use of bombs and the violence, We wondered where the world was headed. We were young and fresh and idealistic and intelligent and questioning. Another year in college, I had a friend who had a beautiful dorm room in the apex of the top floor of a dorm up on the hill where the women's dorms were on the campus. The house was named after Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman in the United States to receive her medical degree from what at the time was Geneva Medical College, and was the precursor to Hobart William Smith colleges. I remember just hanging out in my friend's room after we were done with classes for the day, smoking and talking, watching the Oprah Winfrey show, before heading down the hill to Scandling Hall for dinner. This was our routine. We'd do it every day like clockwork. After dinner, we'd go to Smith Library to study or write papers. After a few hours or so of work, we'd get tired of studying and wander around looking for people to talk or hang with. There was a large sitting area with floor-to-ceiling windows facing out over the hill in the William Smith part of the campus. I think it was nicknamed the airplane room. The view was beautiful, and it provided a really good place to hang out. Other nights after dinner, we would be in no hurry to go study, so we'd just sit in the dining hall and chat. We'd stay so long they'd have to push us out, make us get going so they could close and clean up. In the early spring, we would hang out in the Circle, which was a large circular grassy area in the center of the women's dorms up on the hill. We'd lay on towels or blankets, again with someone's boombox, probably set to Casey Kasem's Top 30 countdown, soak ourselves in tanning lotion and spray water from a water bottle for the ultimate tanning results. And we'd smoke our Camels and gossip and hang in the sun until people decided that they needed to go study or to eat. I remember again the smell of the earth in that spring sunshine. It was very particular. It smelled of possibility, of anticipation, the activities for that evening or what we were going to do after the lacrosse game later that afternoon, of upcoming finals or research papers, of summer vacation plans. I found that the older I get, the less hanging out there is. Anytime I get together with people, it's mostly for a specific purpose or a particular agenda. When I do hang out, it's mostly just by myself these days, and definitely without cigarettes, but still contemplating my future, still worrying about the world, and still wondering about the endless possibilities of what I might do once this is over. I still hope it's something exciting and fun.